Hey D&D fam, I'm Quick.
And I'm Lee, and you're listening to
Divas and Ducats. So what is a diva? I think divas get a bad rep, but to me, diva is all about the attitude.
As for ducats, it's your finances, your assets, Skrilla, guap, your coin. We're talking all things with the potential to affect your pockets.
And while we're attorneys by trade, we are divas by choice. Divas and Ducats is for edutainment purposes.
Y'all, we are not Series 511 or 703 professionals. This does not create a financial advisor or attorney-client relationship. The views expressed here are solely our opinions and the opinions of our guests.
It's just our opinions, y'all. Okay, divas, let's talk Ducats.
Hey D&D fam, welcome back. We're in summertime.
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 Hey, okay, you got to be from a certain generation to know, where that song come from. But it is the summer, and we are continuing conversations about those ships. Y'all know, if y'all have tuned into Divas and Ducats, you know how I feel about ships, those relationships, the family, your relationships with friends, your significant others. Mm-hmm. They impact your money in so many different ways, right?
And she's saying ship with a P as in Paul.
Yes, S-H relationships. Okay, let's clear that up.
So today, what do we have?
We are going to be talking about marriage and money, right? Because therapy is expensive, but so is divorce. So, we're going to be talking about marriage and money and how to try to make sure those ducats are in order with the partner that you have.
Yes. So, before we get into our questions, we have another expert here in her field that we're going to introduce. Yes. We have with us Dr. Faith Troop. Say hello to the people.
Hello, people.
Hey, Doc.
So, give you a little background so you know that she knows her stuff. Mm-hmm. Dr. Faith Troop is owner of Troop Psychotherapy and Consulting, PLLC. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist serving individuals, couples, and families in North Carolina and Georgia. She works as a therapist with Isaiah Counseling and Wellness, PLLC as well. Because she's busy, honey. Booked and busy. She was born and raised in Miami, Florida, and currently lives in Atlanta, Georgia. She earned her undergraduate and master's degree in psychology from Florida A&M University and doctoral degree in marriage and family therapy from Florida State University. Currently, her work centers around helping people heal from loss, trauma, grief, and life transitions. Dr. Faith believes in supporting community and that it begins with supporting healthy families. And over the last few years, her work has also included Black maternal mental health, which we talked about in the episode, specifically by supporting women of color and those who support them, i.e. midwives and doulas.
Love it.
Yes, Dr. Faith loves to travel and experience new things. She enjoys African dance, yoga, gardening, making jewelry, and sewing when she's not helping the people.
Oh, sewing, yes. I love that.
Yes.
I don't know so many seamstresses around. Like, that's a lost art to me. I love
know,
that.
like quilting and whatnot. And I'm trying to find somebody because I got a lot of old T-shirts.
We digress. So, welcome to Divas and Ducats podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. And we like to start off our question with all of our guests for you to tell us in your words what brought you to your current career. What made you decide to be a therapist?
So I am blessed, beyond blessed, because at 14, I knew that I wanted to work with families, and specifically children. So I am the daughter of many mothers because I actually lost my mother when I was 13. And so as a result of that time period and starting therapy at 14 and 15, dealing with grief and loss around the loss of my mother, I realized that there's so much that happens during children's lives and in their spaces and their homes that a lot of times don't get discussed. And so my initial work really centered around, because I thought I wanted to be a child psychologist, working with children in their homes, working with families. And so from that work, I decided to really pursue marriage and family therapy. Because a lot of times things happen, life transitions happen. And so sometimes it's not just grief, it's not just loss. Getting older happens, right? And when you are a child or a young adult or in your middle age or older in age, as life happens, sometimes we need support around that. And so what I initially thought would be my career forever at 14, 15 as a child psychologist, that actually drifted into not just psychology, but really looking at marriage and family therapy, looking at people as not just spots, individuals, but really seeing people within the context in which they exist, in which they live, understanding that if I, as a therapist, have one person, two people, or an entire family in my office, that ultimately I'm not just impacting the people in the room with me, but the people who they ultimately interact with. And so that's how I became, even interested in marriage and family therapy as a discipline. So yeah, I knew early in high school that I wanted to help people, and so that started this to where I am now today.
Yeah. And I think it's really awesome and healthy, especially coming off of Mental Health Awareness Month, that, you spoke to being in therapy so early. Because especially in our community, that's not as common. I think we're doing a little better, but it's still such a hill to climb in terms of people being comfortable with that, right? So that's awesome,
right?
And that's I was about to say that's a complete diversion, but that stood out to me too. Like, obviously, you were still a minor, so you had a support around you that saw that you needed therapy, or did you feel like you had to go to them and make them see that?
No, that was definitely self. I'm one of those people who are like self-guided, so it's like, no. I realized that I am in high school, and even as a young lady, it's like stuff is happening around you. You know that things are happening. You're meeting friends. You're getting interested in boys. You're making decisions in high school that's going to impact what college looks like and all of that kind of stuff. And I knew that I wanted to go to college, but I knew that I needed support around the loss of my mom and just all the changes that happened around the loss of her. And so my family, my sisters knew that I was in therapy, but my family, my extended family, they didn't really know that I was in therapy. And I tried to, kind of bring them in and say, hey, you might need to do some of this family work. But that didn't necessarily happen. But yeah, no, that was I was in high school and I started seeing the school psychologist shortly after starting.
Yeah, that's awesome that there was a resource. Yeah. So we're going to bring it back on home. Speaking of resources. Right. So one of and we always say that depending on which poll you look at, that one of the top 2 reasons for divorce is always finances. Right. And so, I mean, I'm sure you've seen many couples that might be kind of going at it or going really through the thick of things. And so what is it about those finances that is the problem? Is it the lack of finances? Is it how it's managed? Like, what are you kind of seeing in some of those instances?
I mean, I think the lack of finances, if it was that clear, right? I was like, whoa, that's easy. Somebody get another job, right? But no, what I find is that sometimes couples, even with the best of intentions, they don't really discuss their values or their goals related to, like, we're making money, we're bringing in money, but what's our shared goal? What are our values around this? And that's why, regardless of whether or not I'm doing like premarital work or couples are actually in the midst of conflict, and then it comes out that they're having some money issues or conflict around money issues, that indeed I try to do more work around, okay, let's build some healthy conversation around our values. Like, if we don't have any shared values around what we're building as a family, because I genuinely believe, and this is me personally, but also as a therapist, when you have a family, when you have a relationship, we need to be working towards something, even if it's just happiness in a year from now, right? But what does that look like, and how is that defined? And financial goals need to be set up in the same way. But if we don't have shared values, like a clear understanding of, well, what does money mean? Right? What does money mean? What is the value of money? What is the value of the dollar as it relates to us and what it is that we're doing together? Then it becomes one of those conversations that really don't necessarily get teased out. And that doesn't mean that it's all bad, but it definitely becomes one of those things that needs to be addressed. So shared values, shared goals, or at least an understanding of what our values are as a family, as a couple, that supports our goals. So a goal might be specifically around vacationing, right? We don't vacation enough. I wish we did. It's one of the things that I wish people would incorporate into their goal setting as a family. But if we don't set aside and identify and discuss what those goals look like, then we're really not even working towards something. So when the money's gone, it's like, well, where did the money go? Or, well, how did we decide to pay off debt and things like that? So values, goals, and then sometimes there's this unspoken history of trauma around money. I hate to use the word trauma because sometimes it's overused, but sometimes people have genuine lived experiences of being poor and without. And so they are working really hard to not experience that again. And so there needs to be conversation and understanding around, like, even how do we get to this point of understanding what our values are around money that becomes sometimes a part of our trauma history, be it previous relationships, how we grew up around, and what how we learn about money. How do we learn about investing? Do we even know what investing is? Do we save for things like vacation, or do we just wait for the money to mysteriously show up because we had an extra chunk of cash?
Right.
And so those are the things that I find sometimes just go not discussed. And so by the time they are discussed, or we've been trying to work at it, it's more in the way of conflict, which means we really aren't listening to each other at that point.
For sure. And so do you, I'm assuming when they come in conflict wise, that like there's a partner that's had to deal with, being very poor, and then someone that may not be understanding why they spend the way they spend, or there's a spender and there's a contrast in the way the two partners view money. Is that typically?
Right. And sometimes that comes out in couples therapy where it wouldn't if you were home talking about, well, where did the money go?
Right.
Or why don't we go on vacation? Oh, because we don't ever have money. So it never gets discussed that, my family, we never went on vacations, or we went on vacations all the time. Like every summer we went somewhere. And so it's just ingrained in me to have a savings account. Not that is separate from, say we're saving for household things, or we're saving for, the children, that we actually have savings set aside for the things that we want to do as a family.
Right.
So when those conversations are had, a lot of time, the conversations, that is the understanding, that listening part that is so important when it comes to conflict resolution, it doesn't even get brought up because we don't think, oh, well, this might be a part of your family culture.
Right.
Because we come from families, we come from experiences. We all have our stories that we bring to our relationships, and they inform how we do the things that we do.
Right. And you often hear, especially people who have maybe been through divorce, like hindsight is 2020, or like they didn't talk about it, or just things they ignored while they were dating. So maybe, like, what are some questions or conversations people should be having, to your point, when they're dating about finances? Because I know, especially in community, that can be a taboo subject, right? So, I mean, you get quick and I with how much you make. I don't know that that's the conversation, but what are some things that people should be talking about, right?
I think if that's something that you're genuinely interested in knowing, like, it's like, oh, well, I need to know how much you make. Yeah, I don't think you want to wait till you're married to ask the question, because then that means that anxiety around how much a person makes is what you brought into the marriage.
Okay.
Right? So my thing is always ask the questions that come to you, like follow your spirit, because at the end of the day, not asking makes you this kind of anxious, nervous mess when it comes to the even the conversation of finances that now you're bringing, when you could have asked and had the person say, "Oh, well, I make $2,000 a year, like, and I love it," and you're like, "Oh, interesting." It's like, how we gonna live on that?
No vacations.
No.
Right, definitely not. No vacations. But that having your own understanding of what it is financially you want that will help you to feel comfortable in a marriage, in a relationship. Those are the questions that you need to ask. I mean, always, it's at various parts of dating that we get into these conversations around, how much you make, and what do you do, and how do you save, and what do you save, do you invest? If you're interested in those things, I think you need to ask. That's like my hard and goal, because all you can do is ask, shoot your shot, and then allow the person to answer, and then look for the backup, the follow through, the action that shows that they are interested in saving. One of the things though one of the things that will happen if you have the question of, I genuinely want to know how much this person makes, you don't ask. You bring that anxiety into the marriage, and then you're frustrated when you actually ask the question. Both of you are going to be on the defense. So that means you're not really discussing finances anymore. Y'all really just engaging in conflict. And so that's why it's important to just ask all the things that you want to know prior to. Do I think that, knowing how much a person makes before you are engaged, you need to make sure that that's important to you. You need to make sure that that's a question that's important to you. But you do get to see certain things while you're dating. Like you get to see how they spend their money. You get to see if they spend money. You get to see if they work, if they have a job. If they don't have a job, they have no way of bringing in money. Or they're constantly, or they make a lot of money and they're always grinding. Like those are things that speak to who a person is that you do want to see up front.
Right.
And you want to take as truth. Because wait until after you're engaged or after you're married, hoping that this will change. That's another kind of, if you say to yourself this thing will get better after marriage, that's not usually how that works. It's usually not how it works. It don't quite come together like that.
And that pause, I'm telling you, every time. And that takes me to my question, because you hear so many people that have gotten divorced say, I saw the red flag, right? Like when these couples are coming in for counseling, are most of them saying that they did see these patterns before they got married, or were they kind of like they kind of turned a side eye, like, I'm not going to ask the questions because I don't want to know? Like they didn't take the deep dive, or did they not see? Because I'm like you, I don't believe people drastically change because you put a ring on it and say I do.
No.
Right. So my first response to that is that sometimes we fall for the love, right? Or the feeling of love, and then everything else becomes like this gray. Like the only thing that's black and white is whether or not I love you or not, or whether the sex is good or not, or whether you pay to get my nails done or not, type of a thing.
Right.
And no knock to people that those things matter. However, a person will show you glimpses of who they are. Now, mind you, there are people out there who will not. They will be very good. They will be so there's that unique crew of people who are very good at not being honest. And so you have to deal with that. But for the most part, love is never enough. Right? And so love will get you to the altar. I mean, it'll get the ring, it'll get you to the altar, it'll get you through that first year. But then when you start to realize, oh, we never really discussed finances. So you'd be surprised the number of couples that really don't discuss finances. They don't plan for their future. They don't plan for the will. They don't plan for the life insurance. They don't plan for investing or not investing. They don't plan for vacations. They don't even discuss it. And so they're waiting for marriage. They're waiting for the wedding day to have those meaningful conversations. Which, that's when you realize, oh, we really do differ in how what our values are related to what money means to us individually, and that directly impacts the marriage. It impacts how the family exists. And so, sometimes the red flags are ignored, but sometimes people don't even have the conversation. There's never like an intentional conversation about, well, how do we do this? Do we have shared accounts? Do we have individual accounts? Do we have a pot of money that goes to pay the bills? And so I try to discuss that with my couples, especially if they're coming to me for premarital, so that there's the conversation has started.
And when a couple does come into you for like premarital counseling, let's say the couple that doesn't talk about finances, right? They come in to you, you realize that they're not talking, and you're able to see from, your perspective that there's probably going to be some underlying financial issues. What would be some of those like red flags? Like a person, I don't know necessarily, maybe being controlling or
there's a difference between like financial abuse that is under the realm of what we look at like power and control, or like domestic violence, actual abuse in relationships. One of the aspects of actual abuse in relationships is that financial control, right? And so those are definite things to look forward to. Any okay, so I'm treading lightly here because in some relationships, people don't have an issue with having to earn money in the relationship. So like I earn an allowance, or so that if that's your thing, then have at it. If it's not your thing, so I'm not talking to those people. I'm not talking to the people who are like, I don't mind if my partner controls all the money and I have to do things to earn it. I'm not talking to y'all. I'm talking to the people who want to be in the discussion and involved in the discussion. When you don't have discussion, that's a bad thing. When you don't know where money is, that's not a good thing. When you don't understand how bills are being paid, not a good thing. Because there is an unsettling feeling when you look around and you realize, the bills ain't been paid in 5 months. Or somebody's coming to repo the car, type of a thing. So if you don't know where those pieces are, and you want to know,
right,
that's an issue. When you don't want to know and you're fine with not knowing, I'm not talking to those people. But if you have a desire to be engaged, then you definitely want to have the conversation. But I'm saying this up front: listening is 85% of communication. So you should always you always should be prepared to do more listening than you are talking or trying to defend yourself. So if you are not listening to what the other person is saying and y'all are coming to a shared understanding, then that's a problem.
Gotcha.
But everybody, even if it's not explicitly discussed, people come to conclusions about how they're gonna spend their money.
Right.
So be mindful, be watchful of that. And again, I do want to say, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I want to say too that this is very different when there's abuse involved. So again, that's a totally different dynamic. That it looks very different.
You're saying like physical abuse, it looks very different.
Well, because most people look at domestic violence or sexual abuse or abuse as physical abuse being the first thing.
Right.
Most of the time they hit you last, but they controlled your money. They have spoken so negatively towards you that you have assumed that you're probably not even bright enough to maintain money. And so the physical parts of actual abuse come later. Like it might look like a push or a shove, but that financial power and control piece, yeah, that is abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. And where does that, I know, like, and it probably could be different for multiple people, but is there like a commonality of like where that stems from like the abuser or the victim in terms of like, I don't know, I don't want to say entering that situation, but being in like an abusive situation? Is there like a, I don't know,
I wish
some kind of connection point?
There's so many factors that contribute to how we end up in relationships that we end up in. So really it is about the dynamics between the two people and how they start, because nobody goes into a relationship saying I want to be controlled,
Right.
Unless you into that, which again, that's a whole other dynamic, right? But most people do not go into relationships like that. It happens over time, and it's a subtle manipulation. You know, it's a subtle thing. And so where most of us some of us take the position of I could never.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know they're in it until it's happened for years.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there are multiple factors. There's, you know, history of it within other relationships, family history of it. There are some studies that speak to like the family dynamics as far as whether or not there was violence or control over money and things like that. Poor self-esteem, depression, anxiety, all of those things, you know, can kind of contribute to abusive relationships on either part, right? But that's, as far as perpetrators, that's not my area. I've worked more with people who have been survivors of either sexual assault, sexual abuse, and domestic violence.
Got you. And so just want to shift slightly, because I know for some people this other area can be a point of contention, where the woman is the higher earner. I know that's less traditional. Maybe it's becoming more common now. But what are some of the issues that present for both partners, both the, you know, the woman as the higher earner in a heterosexual situation, and the man not being the, you know, bringing home the bacon, so to speak?
We're definitely seeing healthier trends around how couples are managing this, because the truth is a lot of couples exist where the woman in a heterosexual relationship make more, or the person that they assumed would be making more is now making less, and so the other person is having to, or is making more just because, you know, maybe they got an unexpected raise or they changed careers, and, you know, so things happen. So it can be stressful on both parties, because there's that shift that needs to happen that sometimes doesn't, right? And which is one of the other reasons when it comes to healthy financial conversations within relationships, we should be having these conversations, if not quarterly, at least every half year, once a year, that we're doing this check-in around, well, how are we doing financially? What are we looking like financially? What are our goals? How far are we from it? And so if that conversation is happening, then they already understand who's bringing in what and what portion of this is going where and things like that. And in those situations, it also matters less who's bringing it in, right? So what happens is that sometimes there is a loss of job, or again, a change of career, or one person is just that driven and they end up making more. And it's not the person that was anticipated to be the breadwinner. It's stressful for both people, because on one end you don't want to, if it's a woman, if it's a heterosexual relationship and the woman is making more, the woman sometimes will feel that stress of, well, I don't want to tout that I'm the one making more money, but there are times when I'm like, but I am making more money, so, you know, like, give me that respect. And so that brings up different types of issues around what respect looks like. What does it look like to who's going to pay the bills? If someone's bringing in money, who's going to pay the bills? And then what other areas in the household need to be supported if this person is maybe working more because they're making more because they're working more,
right?
And what does that look like? And so on the other person's, and not to speak or generalize to all men, but their sometimes it's like this feeling of, well, where do I fit in? And how do I matter in this situation, or am I even needed here if you're making more than me? And so again, those conversations are conversations that need to be happening continuously, like, because we're constantly evolving, like change is inevitable, right? And so are your finances.
Yeah.
They're I mean, if you are planning to be married for 50, 60 years, then hopefully there's going to be some change. And so we need to be discussing that, and how does it impact our goals, our shared goals. So yeah, it could definitely bring stress into the household, but it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
How do you talk to, I guess, because I'm sure you've seen it, where the woman, like you said, the woman is making more money, and I don't know, during an argument, she kind of is like, I don't need any of this stuff. Like, you could take all this stuff. I can buy my own. Like, kind of letting him know, I literally don't need you. And, you know, like, and I'm sure it's emasculating. Yeah.
Let's be honest, how she said it. This is my... That's what she said.
Right.
That's what she said.
So, how does that, like, how do you, I guess, work to start fixing that? On her end is a mentality, and on his end, it's feeling emasculated, or, like you said, finding his place.
Right. And so I think it's a lie to say that you are in a relationship and don't need somebody. Right? Something about that isn't truth.
Right.
So they fulfilling some role, and so what happens is that can only be met with defensiveness. Right? Like, if you criticize somebody to the point of saying, you not even worth, I don't need none of what you bring to the table because you not worth that, you being here brings no value to me. And you want the person to stay?
Right.
So
I love her.
There is something to be said for how we say the things, because you can say a lot.
Yeah.
In how you say it.
Yeah.
And so surely, if you want to be heard, because ain't nobody gonna hear that. I don't care if you're a man, woman, or child. If you tell somebody I don't need you,
right,
then you really are looking towards eventually that person showing you just how much you don't need them. Right? And so what is it that you're genuinely trying to communicate here? Because if it's that, then that's going to be too detrimental to y'all to even be able to communicate together.
Right.
If you go that direction with it. So my goal, even as a therapist, when I see that in session, it's always going to be, well, what is it that you're really trying to communicate here? What is it that you want your partner to hear? Because you certainly, if you want them to hear that, then you know you are making conscious decisions to push your partner away. Which means y'all are not communicating anymore. Y'all are arguing. Y'all are in full-blown conflict. Right? So it really does come down to, do we want to be together, and are we willing to say the things that we can hear from each other? Can you hear me saying, I need this from you? Or I'm concerned about what is being contributed to the household, or I'm controlled that I'm carrying too much. Because especially what I've seen through the pandemic is that people are carrying the stress of having to work more.
Right.
For various reasons, right? Because they're afraid they might lose their job, or they are people that left the job and now they got to work more, you know. And so there's that stress of just having to do so much more, that sometimes it impacts how we speak and we show up in our marriages and in our relationships. So we definitely have to be gentle with our words. You always want to speak with love and compassion, because you want the person to hear you.
That can be hard, though.
Yeah, no, it's definitely hard.
Right.
When it gets you in your chest, like, you're like, I know you just did. Let me speak with my whole body.
Say it with your chest.
Say it with your chest. Yeah, no, that doesn't. It fits when you out in the streets.
Right.
Right. It don't fit in your marriage.
Right.
Yeah.
It don't fit in relationships. So if you know that, then you can say a lot. Based on how you say it.
That's true.
And we talked about some of the, like, more, I guess, negative boundaries and talking about control, like some of the healthier boundaries. So me and Lee on our show, we often say, that it's, I guess, healthy to have your own individual accounts and then having, joint accounts for whatever bills or however you choose to do it in your relationship. Mm-hmm. But particularly for the situations, I guess, in relationships where maybe one partner would love to have a joint account, mm-hmm. and the other one is kind of like, no, we not commingling money for whatever reason. Maybe because they don't trust their spending habits.
Right.
I don't, it goes deeper, right? Mm-hmm. In those kind of situations, like, what have you seen to be healthy boundaries when a person doesn't want to commingle money versus, okay, they really might not be all in, or there's some trust issues going on behind why they don't want to commingle money with you.
Right. So to me, that's if they're married, to me, that's the sign that they didn't have an agreed understanding prior to getting married. Right. If you're married already and you're now discussing the fact that we don't know if we're going to have a joint account mm-hmm. or separate accounts, that means y'all probably didn't get into the nuts and bolts of what y'all's finances was going to be prior to actually getting married, right? So to me, it is then about understanding, okay, what is your values? What are your values individually and then as a couple? What mm-hmm. is it? What are your needs? Because sometimes when people are asking for a joint account, they're really asking for financial security, right? They don't want to feel financially insecure. Okay. Like, what if we don't have money? What if we don't have bills? What if, and so when it comes to feeling financially insecure, you don't want that to be a dynamic in the marriage that goes not discussed or undiscussed, mm-hmm. in the sense that I always encourage people to know, well, what's your threshold of like savings versus what's in the joint account versus what's in your individual account? What will allow you to feel safe, mm-hmm. right? Because then we really talking now mm-hmm. about numbers, which is then goals, mm-hmm. right? And we're getting it down to, okay, I would feel financially safe if we had 6 months of our bills put to the side, or 3 months, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So this is what we're working towards, mm-hmm. right? So does it matter if we have it in a joint account or in an individual savings? Mm. Yeah, I would want it in a joint account. Or no, it don't necessarily matter. But we both need to have access to it. Mm-hmm. Right? So again, these are things that can be and should be discussed so that it is very clear that whether or not we have a joint account or individual accounts, that we agree on how things are going to get taken care of and that we're working towards something. Right? I tell people all the time, because people often ask me this about the joint versus the the individual accounts. I'll never forget the first couple that I worked with that dealt with finances, and they shocked me. I mean, I was like, "What the hell?" But they were older, so okay. I was like, obviously they got time on me, so they done figured something out. Mm-hmm. They split every bill 50-50.
I know a couple that started off like.
Interesting.
Even to the point of, if we get stuff for the kids, like, I'm bringing you the bill. Oh. If I pay for it, and we gonna put it down 50-50. Again, I was like, clutch my pearls. What you mean? I was young. So, because the thing is that I like to hear people's stories.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I like to know, okay, well, how did you get to this place? Mm-hmm. So, again, I hit them with well, how did y'all get here? Like, how y'all not young? In my mind, because, of course, I'm not going to call people old. But the wife, when they were dating, had a phone bill that was like $300-$400 pre-cell phone. So this tell you how old they were. Mm-hmm. Pre-cell phone, so it was no unlimited calling after whatever. It was, I'm literally having to call my landline, use my landline to call you. You in a different state. We in love. We love each other, but we still on this here long distance phone calling. Great. She said she mentioned to him one time, man, this is I just got my phone bill. It was really expensive, like $300-$400. She said from her perspective, what she heard him say was, I hope you can pay that. That's what she heard.
So she said, "Oh,
that's what she heard." Mm-hmm. And from that point forward, she said, "I will never ask him for $1." Married, have a beautiful house, adopted 2 beautiful kids.
They went half on the baby.
They did.
Oh, sorry.
They did. Literally.
Literally.
And everything
But
else.
they were happy.
I mean.
Were they? That's good.
Yeah.
That worked.
Because I wasn't there. I was there to support them as a couple for other reasons that did not have anything to do with their money. But when they told me that that's how they handled their, I was like, well, I must know. Do tell the story. And when she said that, he didn't even really remember, which was funny.
How they got there.
How they got there. But that is how subtle it is that we start to have conversations that aren't even really happening, and then the conversations that we should be having, we're not having. Mm-hmm. But that's how quick it is. So here they are, years later, happily married, splitting the bills.
Because it was landline.
Landline
phone conversation.
But that bothered her. Okay.
Clearly, she remembered to the day. He like, what are you talking about?
What she remembered, she was like, I never, and there may have been some other dynamics at play right on her end as far as her lived experiences and watching, maybe in her family or something like that. Mm-hmm. But she was like, from her perspective, she heard him kind of say, I hope you can pay that bill, but did not offer to pay.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it.
She was like, yes and no. Thank you. I love you. But I would never ask you for money.
Not never.
Not ever. So we have to be mindful of those things so that we're creating healthy conversations around money. We can't be scared to talk about money.
No.
That's so true.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like there can be, I'm not going to say a danger, but it can kind of be a red flag when you're with someone and they don't want you to have access to their money. Now, that's different. I think I do. I mean,
I'm going to go lawyer mode. It depends.
On what?
I'm just saying, how much we talking? It depends. When you say access to money, any money?
I mean, yeah. Like I'm definitely going to have a prenup, but that's protecting afterlife stuff, right?
Right.
But my fiance couldn't come and say, "Hey, I need such and such," and I have to dip into my 401k to help him out. He got access to my 401k. Now he gonna be a co-signer on the 401k. No, but if he needed access to funds, he got it. You know what I'm saying? This is the same thing. Like, I know his accounts. I'm not on his account name. I can't go up in the bank and withdraw nothing.
Right.
But I have access to it. And I think when a partner is like, no, this is mine. You can't touch it. You can't see. You don't need to know these numbers. And there are people out there, and again, for that percentage, it works for you and you don't find it offensive, cool.
Well, when you're saying access, though, because you said, like, okay, I can't go get it, but I know about them. When you saying are you meaning access like you can actually go get it, or the knowledge of it?
Well, from when I say access, I mean, I know about it, and if I needed it, I can get it. Like, I can have it. Now, he might have to pull the money out, but there are, truly people that when I feel like you don't have access, it's like you
don't have an awareness.
You don't have an awareness of it, and you couldn't use it. Like, they would be like, no, that's my 401k that I work for. Right. You need this bill paid off, then you need to hustle and get your job up. And
I mean, was it in that prenup? Some people's 401k is nice.
Right.
Just saying.
But so to me, that's one of those things that if you find out after you're married that the person has a genuine issue with you having awareness. Right. I'm not saying, again, because the access is something totally different, but an awareness of what you have in your regular kind of spending. If that is of importance to you, you have to speak to that prior to marriage.
Right.
Right. Not in my suggestion is you speak to that prior to marriage. Well, because after the fact, then it's just going to be a source of contention and so a source of conflict. And again, if you making adult decisions and that's what you're doing, then just know that that's going to be one of the first 4 conversations y'all have that's going to go left.
And that brings me to what can be a point of contention. In your professional opinion, what do you think about these prenups? Because people, it seems to be very polarizing.
Yeah.
It is very polarizing, which is again why we got to be very clear up front from the beginning. What do you see as the purpose of getting a prenup? If we're doing a prenup, what's the purpose of it? What is the thing that we are trying to do here? And you both want to be in agreement on it, or at least have understanding. We can agree to disagree, but there needs to be understanding. Like, I need to be upfront and clear about why would I sign and why would I have you sign a prenup. Okay.
What kind of purpose could you give for them to be like, oh yeah, I agree with that. That's what's up.
Right. But to me, the purpose of a prenup on GP is that it protects your assets prior to whatever you came into the marriage with. Now, the additional things that comes into prenups and all the other agreements, I can't speak to people's personal, decisions around that. But if it's to protect what the person came into with, like an inheritance or a family land,
or 401k,
you need to be very clear that there ain't nobody touching that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because
let's be clear.
or that you're saving it for the children. Purpose is purpose. So
you're not opposed?
No. I think I don't oppose anything that people say will help them to be happy and live their best lives.
Right.
You agree on it, and then because a prenup is a standing thing. So what is it that you all are growing in the marriage? To me, that's more so what's important.
Right.
When it comes to marriage anyway, like, you both may have worked really hard to get what you have, or your parents may have worked, or your great, however, or you may have children that you need to protect prior to the marriage. So, those things are in place. So those are reasons, right?
Right.
But what we doing together? What are we building? What are we creating together?
Right.
That doesn't even have to be included in it's not part of the prenup. So what we doing together? Because that becomes community.
Right.
That's a whole 50-50 discussion that's about to happen.
It is. Right.
Yeah, we feel the same there.
Okay. Our hearts and minds are clear.
Our hearts and minds are clear.
Yes. Let there be clarity.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank you, Dr. Faye, for dropping in to share this free gems and knowledge. Where can the people find you? I'm not sure if you're taking on new clients, but
ooh, that is the loaded question. So, from our friends and family, like people that refer to me for specific things, then they already know that I would see them. So I am listed on Psychology Today, which is a listserv for therapists. I'm also on Therapy for Black Girls as a listserv, so that I can be found there. My website is drfaithtroop.com, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Yes, I'm going to put a period on that. But I am Dr. Faith Troop on Facebook and Instagram, I believe. And then Troop Psychotherapy and Consulting has a Facebook page. And then I'm also on the website for Isaiah Counseling and Wellness.
All right.
So I can be found quite a few places.
Right.
Actually.
All right. Say, look me up.
Right. Google me.
Yes.
Google me.
Yeah, Google me. Google me. Right.
Well, we will make sure to have her information, of course, in the show notes for our D&D fam. So are you taking clients, though, right now with the virtual stuff and everything going on?
Right. So I am taking, seriously, real talk, though. I have taken a few clients. I try to only take one or two a week. New people, just because if I'm doing premarital, I know it's for a specific set of sessions, and so I get to move people in and out. And so as I make room, I will call people and let them know what my availability is. So
fair enough.
All right.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm taking clients, but I don't take everybody because I'm not for everybody, and everybody ain't for me.
Hey.
So
important to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So call me for a consultation. How about that? And then we can go from there.
Okay.
That sounds great.
Well, we'll have her information, and there is a very quick Dear Diva that we can get in 3 minutes or less, because we have not done many since we've been recording. We have such people with such rich knowledge. So, but if you'd like to possibly have a question, comment, concern, your shenanigans read on an episode, you can email us divaadvice@gmail.com. That's DIVAADVICE@gmail.com. And the letter, I'm just going to summarize it. Basically, the person is, I guess, somewhat behind or feels behind financially because they spent some time in grown-up timeout, aka jail. And so they're trying to figure out how to build their credit with no credit because, unfortunately, no credit is looked at worse than bad credit. So they just want to know what they can do to kind of help themselves along the way.
Let's see. So I would probably start with getting some prepaid credit cards, like putting cash on the credit cards, making sure that whatever prepaid credit card that you're getting will be ran into the 3 bureaus that they will run it, because there are some that are just like a debit card and it wouldn't matter. So that would be a good way to start. Getting some bills in your name. Start small, cell phone bill, making sure that you're paying them regularly, not missing any payments. Do not be late on payments, because every time you're 30 days, 60 days, 90 days late, it goes on your credit report. Your credit score goes down.
Right.
The quickest way to build it, if you have a trusted friend and
an authorized user,
honey, or family member, yes, they can make you an authorized user now. I don't know if your prior location will be an issue. But
what they can do is make you an authorized user, but you don't have access to the card.
Right, you don't get the card.
So some people do that. Like, okay, I'll add you, and the person needs to have good credit. Don't just have anybody, because you basically inherit their credit.
And they should also have 30% less utilization. If they're at 70% utilization, you getting on there, it's not going to help you at all.
And a lot of people do that for their kids. The folks who know the game, they do that for their kids come out with 800 credit at 17. Like, how? So that, if they but that's where you can take that trust issue out. If they just add you, they're very responsible, and then they just let it run smoothly, then you don't ever have to have access to the card. But the prepaid thing, I was going to ask, when you said you put cash on it, is it, for example, if I put 500 on here, my limit is 500? Okay.
Yep. So you can't spend more than you actually put on
it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So that was quick and easy.
It was.
All right. So again, questions, comments, concerns, divaadvice@gmail.com. Quick, you got any tips?
I do not have any tips. The tips I have for you is, if you are on YouTube right now, you need to hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, we are on YouTube now. You can go over there, see this video that you are now listening to, and go hit subscribe. Find us on Divas and Ducats on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, and go follow us, like, and share.
Amen. And as hot girl summer, Quick and I will be on Money Talk.
Yay!
The third Thursday of June, July, and August, from 5 to 6. And it is WGH 1310 AM. You can, if you're in Virginia, you can just turn your dial to that. If not, you can go to moneytalk1310.com. So again, that's the third Thursday of the month. I believe that's June 17th, July 15th, and August 19th. You can hear us on the radio.
Yay!
All right, y'all. So good episode. Thanks for being here. Thank you again, Dr. Faith. And in the meantime, in between time,
have a great attitude.
Bye.
Bye.